The 2018 iPhone XS is now 6 years old if you can believe it, and despite costing typically well under $200 USD on the used market, a lot of the specs are still going strong. And so, is this the budget smartphone king of 2024 or simply an ancient relic? Let's find out, starting with the design. And by the way, timestamps are in the description if you'd like to see something specific. So, in my opinion at least, this is peak iPhone design post-home button. Super high-end and clean-looking phone, premium build materials, and it's the absolute perfect size in the hand, with a 5.8-inch screen size and weight of 177 grams. Phones literally do not need to be any bigger than this. Either one or two-handed use works great, and you can easily reach all four corners of the screen with one thumb while still having a decently sized screen. Plus, the edges are curved, not those rather uncomfortable flat sides we've been getting since the iPhone 12. The XS is just leaps and bounds more pleasant to use than my 13 Pro Max, which is an absolute behemoth, and even the larger XS Max is still not even that bad since it's also still pretty thin and light. This was the last time Apple would release a flagship phone designed to be as sleek as possible, although the titanium built 15 Pro is only 10 grams heavier than the XS, so they've taken a step back in the right direction as of late. Now, being a 6-year-old phone, a lot has changed aesthetics wise. For example, on the front we get the larger notch instead of the shrunken down one or the dynamic island, which isn't a huge deal breaker, but it is noticeably more distracting from your content. Although the notch does house the components for Face ID, which is still super quick to recognize you, and it works from a good amount of angles, so no complaints there. Now, while the curved edges on the sides are nice in the hand, the stainless steel is of course fingerprint haven, so you'll probably want to use a case. On the bottom, there's the lightning port and speaker, and the speakers on here are really nothing special. I mean, they do the job. They were pretty top end for their time, but all in all, not gonna knock your socks off. Also, no USB-C here unfortunately, as that wouldn't be introduced to the iPhone until literally last year. They took their sweet time. Now, the back of the XS is the exact same as the iPhone X from the year before, except for the new for the time gold color, aside from the standard silver and space gray. Also, this was the last premium line of iPhones with a shiny glass back, unlike the matte finish we've been getting since the 11 Pros. So again, watch out for fingerprints, although the shiny glass is a lot more grippy in the hand. With the matte back, it kind of feels like the phone could just slip out at any time. Now, this camera design is probably the best ever on an iPhone looks-wise. Obviously, the newer cameras on phones are big and bulky and hideous because they're far better quality, but aesthetics-wise, the XS's camera bump is just 100 times more inarguably sleeker. Plus, this was also the last iPhone to have the iPhone text at the bottom. They removed it the following year since they had to shift down the Apple logo for the camera bumps on the iPhone 11 and 11 Pros, so there wasn't really any room for it, but I kinda do miss it. By the way, the body of this phone is IP68 water resistant. It apparently can withstand 2 meters of water for 30 minutes, so it'll easily survive a drink spill, but I'd still be a bit careful since the water-resistant adhesive will likely have worn down over the years. But yeah, super gorgeous phone all in all, one of the best iPhone designs ever in my humble opinion, and I reckon it's also the most comfortable phone in the hand I've ever used. Let me know down in the comments if you agree. Is the XS a wake-up call that phones have just gotten too darn hefty in the hand for the average person? Now, moving back to the front of the XS, we have our 5.8-inch OLED display, which still looks darn gorgeous nowadays, with a resolution of 2436 by 1125 and pixel density of 458 pixels per inch. I can guarantee you'll never see any individual pixels, colors are vibrant and full of life, plus it's OLED, so you're getting those deep true blacks. It's honestly amazing quality for the price, whether you're into tech specs or you just want a screen that shows stuff clearly enough, and the display size is also quite decent despite being the smaller model. Although, if you do appreciate a big screen, the iPhone XS Max's 6.5-inch display is the exact same crispy quality as the XS, just magnified. Although 6 years is a long time for the development of better displays to come along, so the XS is missing quite a few bells and whistles compared to flagships nowadays. For example, it's only 60Hz and not the buttery smooth 120Hz like on all modern flagships. With 120Hz, the frame rate of the screen is doubled, so every swipe and every scroll will be insanely smooth. It's honestly such a refreshing upgrade, and going back to 60Hz is actually kind of jarring, so keep that in mind if you're currently using a phone with a refresh rate higher than 60 and you're thinking of switching to the XS. Of course, this is by no means any kind of essential feature, it's purely a nice to have kind of thing, but it is genuinely such a breath of fresh air once you make the switch. So the outdated 60Hz on here will definitely help to age the display in the coming years. Also, the XS doesn't get too bright, maxing out at 670 nits, so you'll probably have to squint your eyes if you're using the phone outdoors in the sun. But aside from those minor drawbacks, this is still a stunning display. In terms of resolution, colors, graphics, dynamic range, it absolutely is still premium. Something else that's premium is getting high quality 5 5G data for just $15 a month for 3 months with today's video partner, Mint Mobile. Unlike other so-called great value brands, Mint Mobile doesn't sacrifice any speed, coverage, or data. The only thing they have in common is the price. I mean, sure, your current high-end mobile plan might be as solid as a rock, but you could be paying a boatload less while still getting that same high-quality service that'll get you through anything and everything, whether that be heavy online games, scrolling social media, or simply texting and calling. This is because Mint runs on the US's largest 5G network. Also, Ryan Reynolds owns the company, something you definitely can't flex about your current plan.
Hey there, it's Ryan Reynolds, owner of Mint Mobile. Enticing, right?
Mint has really reinvented the mobile service market. There's no salespeople or stores, you can make the switch in a jiffy without even leaving your bed since Mint is eSIM compatible. And so if all that cash you'll save is worth just 10-15 minutes of your time, head to my link in the description below to access Mint for as low as $15 a month for 3 months. And a big thank you to Mint Mobile for partnering with me for this video. Now moving on to the camera setup on the iPhone XS, we have 12 megapixel main and telephoto lenses on the back, and then a 7 megapixel selfie camera on the front. Smartphone cameras have become undeniably worlds better since 2018, but the XS still has quite a bit up its sleeve. It can still take excellent shots, great colors, plenty of detail, and the shutter is nice and quick. Honestly, this camera is still so consistent, and whether you're really into tech specs or not, you will be blown away by just how capable it is after 6 years. I mean, it's nowhere near flagships today in terms of quality or features, but for what it is, and for the price, it really does punch above its weight. Plus, we've also got portrait mode, which still takes pretty decent bokeh shots. Like all older phones, it does blur the edges of the subject at times as the phone tries to figure out the background from the foreground. We are missing quite a few camera features here though compared to what we have now, things like macro and pro raw photography, but most significantly, there's no night mode, which is on pretty much every iPhone past 2019 and can turn pitch dark environments into much more decent and usable shots without using the flash. Super useful, but unfortunately the XS missed out on it by just a year. Again, not really a black and white deal breaker, but it is kind of annoying not being able to use it at places like dark restaurants or concerts. I will also point out that there's no ultra-wide camera on here, something else the XS missed out on by just a year, but is extremely common on modern phones, and like night mode, kind of annoying sometimes not to have. The main lens can also struggle with indoor shots where potentially inconsistent lighting will give you some grain and blur, but not really enough to significantly ruin the picture, and in good lighting, you can still get some very impressive shots that you would never suspect were taken with a 6-year-old phone. In the big picture, this camera still blows new, or relatively new phones at this price point out of the water. Now, we also get a telephoto camera on here with 2x optical zoom, so you can get a closer shot without your image getting pixelated. It is a slight step down from the main lens in terms of detail and color, still perfectly decent and usable, but you won't get exactly the same quality as you do on the main lens. The iPhone 13 Pro series from 2021 really bumped up the telephoto lens to almost on par with the main lens, and adding 3x zoom instead of just 2x, but the telephoto lens on here honestly does the job fine. It's still really useful to have. Now moving on to the selfie camera, the 7 megapixels is kind of low for 2024. Like the telephoto lens, it's not going to blow anyone's minds, but nonetheless, you can still take decent selfies on here. Detail and colors are fine. Nothing really to write home about all in all. Now video on here can be shot in up to 4K at 60 frames per second, and there's really no problems. Super crispy detail and vibrant colors. It's just that a lot of video features we're getting nowadays are missing, like Dolby Vision HDR recording and cinematic mode. Plus, of course, video on newer phones is just going to be high quality in general due to the bigger lenses and better processors. But if all you're doing is capturing memories, you really won't miss all that stuff. The XS still takes solid video without all those features, especially again in good outdoor lighting. So yeah, still a relatively capable camera setup on here. Quality still holds up fine for capturing memories and phone photography, although it is missing quite a boatload of features compared with something like even the iPhone 13 or 12 series. iPhone cameras improved pretty quick in just the span of a few years, and unfortunately the XS and XS Max missed that period by just 1 year. Again though, if you're not too fussy about tech specs and just want a camera setup that works well and consistently, the XS absolutely does the job. Something else that absolutely does the job is the performance, which still flies through pretty much anything and everything with the Apple A12 chipset and 4GB of RAM. The A12 chipset is still no slouch, and ensures that everything from scrolling social media, texting and browsing the web to moderately heavy games are 99% seamless, although super intensive heavy games will incur a dropped frame rate and a very hot phone, but that's really its only limit. Day-to-day light to moderate activity and most games are still pretty effortless on the XS. XS. Sometimes it will take a few more seconds than normal to open apps, or there might be a weird glitch every now and then, but that's what you gotta expect for the phone's age. And it's great to see anyway that Apple is really putting effort into making their older phones last as long as possible, performance and software wise. But then the question arises, well, when will it eventually become obsolete? How many years of use will you roughly get from the XS as of now? Well, from a software point of view, the XS, XS Max and XR are currently the oldest phones able to run the latest iOS 17. The iPhone X, 8 and 8 Plus from the year before were cut off in 2022 with iOS 16. So based off that, we can expect to get around maybe 1 to 2 years more of updates, although it is speculated by many that the XS will remain supported until late 2025, which would be 7 years of support just like the iPhone 6s from 2015, although this is all just speculation. Nothing is certain until Apple announces it in June at WWDC, but even if support does drop this year, the phone won't just magically stop working. You'll be able to use it relatively hiccup-free for another year or so after that before apps start to become incompatible. But if you like to keep your phone for years and years down the line, you should definitely look into something newer like the iPhone 11 or 12 series, but if you usually upgrade after like 1 to 3 years, then you should be fine software support-wise. But you might not be fine battery life-wise. The 2658 mAh battery is pretty small by today's standards, and even back in 2018 the battery life was never top-notch, and even the XS Max wasn't actually that much better. Combine that with up to 6 years for the battery to degrade, and you've got a phone that will most likely need charging at least more than once throughout the day with anything more than light use. Even if your battery health is in the late 80s or higher in settings, you won't really get anything more than a few hours of screen on time. If you don't really touch your phone though, and just use it for the essentials like texting and calling occasionally throughout the day, battery should last you the full day if you don't touch it much, but if you're scrolling social media and playing games whenever you get a spare moment, couldn't be me, it's going to be pretty rough to say the least. The iPhone 11 series significantly bumped up the battery life the following year, so unless you're, again, a pretty light user, I'd definitely recommend avoiding the XS altogether and getting something like an 11 or 11 Pro. The battery life upgrade alone is worth it. And so with every aspect of the iPhone XS in 2024 now covered, it's pretty clear that while time has taken a toll on some pretty important aspects, you're still getting a darn lot of phone for under $200 on sites like eBay or Facebook Marketplace. But if you can, I would definitely recommend stepping up to something like at least the iPhone 11 series. Those phones really bumped up the battery life and gave us way more camera features like night mode. Definitely worth that extra $100 to $150 for a significantly better smartphone experience. But that's not to say the iPhone XS is an old dead relic. Excluding the subpar battery life, it's still a darn decent bundle for under $200. Cameras are quite capable in the right conditions, and performance is solid for most activities. If you're currently using a XS, now would be a good time to upgrade, although with the phone still being fully supported, it isn't absolutely essential just yet, only if say the battery life has had it, or you've been convinced by seeing how good the cameras are on your mate's newer iPhones. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, please make sure you drop me a like and subscribe to TechSpree for more reviews, insights, and the occasional unboxing. Also, if you'd like to have a stalk, my Instagram is at tech_spree and my X is at techspree1. Thank you so much for watching. This is Tom with TechSpree, and I'll see you as always next time.